It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning. The kind of day that makes you want to sit outside and relax. Jake Miller was doing just that. He was in his backyard, a little patch of grass and dirt he called his own. He had a tall glass of cold lemonade in his hand, the ice clinking against the sides every time he took a sip. His feet were up on a chair, and he was leaning back, enjoying the shade from his brand-new patio shade. It was a big piece of green fabric stretched over some metal poles. He'd put it up just a few days ago, and man, did it feel good to sit under it. The sun couldn't burn his skin, and the breeze felt nice and cool. Everything was peaceful, quiet, perfect. See, Jake wasn't alone in his neighborhood. He had neighbors, and one of them was a lady named Karen Baxter. Now, Karen wasn't like most people. She didn't just wave hello or mind her own business. No, Karen liked to be in charge of everything. She acted like she was the queen of the street. If someone parked their car a little crooked, she'd complain. If a kid's ball rolled into her yard, she'd yell. She even told old Mr. Thompson his flowers were too bright once. Everyone knew Karen. As everyone tried to stay out of her way. But Jake, he didn't think much about her. He was a quiet guy. He liked his lemonade, his backyard, and his new shade. That was enough for him. But this Saturday, oh boy, this Saturday was different. Karen had her eyes on Jake, and she wasn't happy. That patio shade, the one Jake loved so much, was about to cause a big problem. A really big problem. And here's the funny part. Karen didn't even know what she was walking into. She thought she was so smart, so powerful, but a storm was coming her way and she had no clue. Want to know what happened next? Keep listening, because this story is about to get wild. Let's back up a bit. Jake wasn't a loud guy. He didn't shout or make a fuss. He'd lived in this neighborhood for years, 5 whole years actually. He knew everybody. The kids who rode their bikes up and down the street, he waved at them. The old lady who walked her tiny dog every morning, he said hi to her. Even the mailman liked Jake because he always left a cold water bottle out on hot days. Jake was nice, simple, easygoing. He worked a regular job fixing cars at a shop downtown, came home, and kept to himself. His house wasn't fancy, just a small place with a white fence and a backyard he liked to sit in. That's where the patio shade came in. He'd saved up some money to buy it. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't super expensive either, just a nice little treat for himself. He spent a whole afternoon putting it up, hammering the poles into the ground, tying the fabric tight so it wouldn't flop around in the wind. When he was done, he stepped back and smiled. It looked good. It made his backyard feel like a real hangout spot. He grabbed his lemonade, sat down under it, and thought, this is it. This is my happy place. For a few days, that's exactly what it was. He'd sit there after work, sometimes with a book, sometimes just listening to the birds. No big deal, just a guy and his shade. Then Karen showed up. Karen lived right next door. Her house was bigger than Jake's, 2 stories with a shiny red door and flowers all over the front yard. She'd only moved in a month ago, but she acted like she'd been there forever. The first time Jake met her, she didn't even say hi. She just pointed at his trash cans and said, "Those better be out of sight by tomorrow." Jake didn't argue. He just nodded and moved them. He didn't want trouble, but Karen, Trouble was her middle name. She had a loud voice and a loud walk. Her flip-flops slapped the ground so hard you could hear her coming from a mile away. She carried a phone everywhere, always ready to call someone and complain. The neighbors called her HOA Karen behind her back because she acted like she ran the homeowners association, even though she didn't. The real HOA guy, Mr. Peters, was quiet and nice. Karen, not so much. So back to that sunny Saturday. Jake was chilling under his shade, minding his own business. The lemonade was sweet, the air was warm, and everything felt right. He didn't hear Karen at first. She was sneaky when she wanted to be. But then slap, 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 there it was, that sound, her flip-flops. He looked up and there she was, standing at the edge of his yard, hands on her hips. Her face was red and her eyes were squinting like she'd just bitten into a sour lemon. She didn't say hello. No, she didn't ask how he was. Nope. She just pointed at his patio shade and yelled, "What is that?" Jake blinked. It's a shade," he said, nice and calm. He didn't get why she was so mad. It was just a piece of fabric on some poles, but Karen didn't care. She took a big step closer, her flip-flops kicking up little clouds of dust. "That thing is ugly," she snapped. "It's ruining my view. You can't just put junk like that in your yard." Jake tilted his head. "Ruining her view. Her house was next door and she had a tall fence. How could she even see it?" But Karen kept going. "It's against the rules. HOA rules. I'm not letting this slide." Now Jake knew a little about the HOA rules. He'd read the paper they gave him when he moved in. Nothing said he couldn't have a patio shade. It wasn't too tall, wasn't too bright, wasn't anything special. But Karen didn't want to hear that. She was already pulling out her phone, her fingers jabbing at the screen. "I'm calling the cops," she said, loud enough for the whole street to hear. "This is illegal and you're going to pay for it." Jake just sat there holding his lemonade. He didn't yell back. He didn't even stand up. He just watched her, quiet as a mouse. Why didn't he fight? Why didn't he tell her to go away? Well, here's the thing, Jake wasn't worried, not one bit. See, Karen thought she had all the power. She thought she could boss him around and win. But she didn't know something important, something huge. Jake wasn't just a guy with a patio shade. He had a secret weapon and it was about to turn this whole day upside down. Karen was stomping around, talking big, but she was walking right into a trap she didn't even see. What was Jake hiding? What made him so calm while she freaked out? Oh, you're going to love this. Stick with me because this story is about to get juicy. Let's paint the picture. The sun was high in the sky, not a cloud anywhere. Jake's backyard was small but cozy, a patch of green grass, a little table, and that new shade keeping him cool. His house was simple, painted light blue with a white front door. Next door, Karen's place looked like a castle compared to his. She had a big porch, fancy curtains in the windows, and a mailbox shaped like a swan. She thought she was better than everyone else, and she wasn't shy about showing it. That's why she hated Jake's shade. To her, it was like a big sign saying, "I don't care what you think." And Karen, she needed everyone to care what she thought. As she stood there yelling about the cops, Jake took another sip of his lemonade. The ice was melting now, making little drops of water slide down the glass. He wiped his hand on his shorts and looked at her. "You sure about this?" he asked, his voice soft. Karen laughed, a loud, mean laugh. "Oh, I'm sure. You're in big trouble, mister." She held the phone to her ear, waiting for someone to pick up. Jake shrugged. He didn't move. He didn't argue. He just sat there like he was watching a show. And in a way he was, because this show, it was about to get a whole lot crazier. Karen didn't know it yet, but she just made a big mistake. Calling the cops wasn't going to go the way she planned. Jake wasn't scared, he wasn't mad, he was ready. Ready for what? Oh, you'll see. This sunny Saturday morning was about to turn into the wildest day this neighborhood had ever seen. Karen thought she was the star, but Jake, he was the one holding all the cards. What do you think happens when the cops show up? Who's really in trouble here? Hang on tight, because this is just the beginning. Karen was mad, really, really mad. She came stomping over to Jake's yard like a big storm rolling in. Her flip-flops hit the pavement hard, slap, 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 like little claps of thunder. You could hear her coming from far away. Her face was all red and her eyes were squinting like she was staring at something awful. She stopped right at the edge of Jake's yard, hands on her hips, and pointed straight at his patio shade. That shade is an eyesore, she yelled, loud enough for the whole street to hear. It's ugly and I hate it. Jake looked up from his chair, surprised. He didn't get it. His shade was just a big piece of dark green fabric on some metal poles. It wasn't shiny or loud or crazy. It was simple, nice. It kept the sun off his head while he drank his lemonade. But Karen didn't see it that way. To her, it was like Jake had put up a giant sign that said, "I don't care about you." She glared at it like it had jumped out and insulted her right to her face. "This is against HOA rules," she barked. "You can't have that junk in your yard. I'm calling the cops right now." Jake blinked. He didn't say much. He just sat there holding his cold glass of lemonade, the ice clinking inside. Karen pulled her phone out of her pocket super fast, like she was drawing a sword. She punched the numbers 9-1-1 and held it to her ear. "Hello, yes, I need the police," she said, her voice all whiny and sharp. "There's an illegal structure in my neighbor's yard. It's breaking the rules and it's awful. You need to come quick." She kept going, talking about how terrible Jake's shade was, like it was the worst thing she'd ever seen. Jake didn't move. He didn't yell back. He didn't even stand up. He just took another sip of his lemonade and watched her. His face was calm, like nothing was wrong. Why wasn't he mad? Why wasn't he telling her to stop? Well, here's the secret. Jake knew something Karen didn't. Something big. Something that made all of this funny to him, even while she was freaking out. He wasn't scared of her or her phone call. He just sat there, quiet, letting her talk. Karen kept yelling into the phone. "Yes, it's a shade, a big ugly shade. It's ruining everything." She waved her free hand around, pointing at Jake's yard like it was a big mess. The shade just sat there doing nothing, being green and quiet. But to Karen it was a monster. She hated it so much you'd think it had bitten her or something. "I'm not going to let this go," she shouted, glaring at Jake. "You're in trouble now. The cops are coming and they'll make you take it down." Jake tilted his head a little. "You sure?" he asked, his voice soft and easy. Karen laughed, a loud, mean laugh that sounded like a bark. "Oh, I'm sure," she snapped. "You think you can just do whatever you want, not in my neighborhood." She turned away from him, still talking to the person on the phone. "Yes, hurry, he's breaking the rules and I want him stopped." She sounded so proud, like she was winning a big fight. But Jake, he didn't look like he was losing. He didn't look worried at all. He leaned back in his chair, the shade keeping him cool, and took another sip. The lemonade was sweet and the day was still sunny. Karen's voice was loud, but it didn't bother him. He wasn't arguing because he didn't need to. See, Karen thought she was the boss. She thought she could scare Jake and make him do what she wanted. But she didn't know the whole story. She didn't know what Jake was hiding. The air felt heavy now, like something big was about to happen. Karen paced back and forth, her flip-flops slapping louder and louder. Slap, slap, slap. She kept looking at Jake, waiting for him to get mad or scared. But he didn't. He just sat there, sipping his drink like he was watching a funny show. And that made Karen even madder. "You think this is a joke?" she yelled. "You won't be laughing when the police get here." She pointed at him, her finger shaking a little. "They'll fix this. They'll make you sorry." Jake shrugged, just a little lift of his shoulders like he didn't care. "Okay," he said, super calm. That one word made Karen's face turn even redder. She huffed and puffed like a dragon about to breathe fire. "Okay," she shouted. "That's all you've got to say, okay?" She couldn't believe it. She wanted him to fight back. She wanted him to yell or beg her to stop. But Jake wouldn't give her that. He stayed quiet, and that drove her crazy. Why was he so chill? Why wasn't he upset? Because Jake had a trick up his sleeve. He wasn't just some guy with a patio shade. He knew something Karen didn't, and it was something that was going to change everything. She was out there making a big fuss, thinking she was in control. But the truth, she was not even close. The cops were coming, sure, she'd called them and they'd show up soon. But what Karen didn't know was who they were really coming for. That's right, things were about to flip upside down, and she had no idea. The tension was building, like a balloon getting bigger and bigger. Karen's voice echoed down the street and a few neighbors peeked out their windows. They'd heard her before, yelling about trash cans or loud music. But this was next level loud. She was putting on a show and Jake was her audience. Only he wasn't clapping, he wasn't cheering, he was just sitting there waiting. Waiting for what? Oh, you'll see. This wasn't just about a shade anymore. It was about something way bigger. Karen finished her call and shoved the phone back in her pocket. "They're on their way," she said, crossing her arms. "You're done, Jake, done." She smirked like she'd just won a prize. But Jake didn't flinch. He looked at her, his eyes steady, and took another sip. The ice in his glass clinked again, a tiny sound against her big loud words. He wasn't scared, he wasn't mad, he was ready for the moment when everything would turn around. And Karen, she was walking right into it, flip-flops and all. "What's going to happen when those cops show up? Stick around, this is getting good." Karen was still on the phone, talking loud and fast. She was mad and she wanted everyone to know it. "Yes, it's a shade, an ugly, illegal shade," she shouted into her phone, packing back and forth in Jake's yard. Her flip-flops went slap, slap, slap on the ground like she was trying to stomp out her anger. She kept pointing at Jake's patio shade like it was the worst thing in the world. "You need to send someone now." As she told the dispatcher, her voice all whiny and sharp. She thought she was winning. She thought she was the boss. Jake, though, he wasn't worried. He leaned back in his chair, the green shade keeping him cool. His lemonade glass was sweaty in his hand, little drops of water dripping down the side. He watched Karen with a tiny smirk on his face, just a little curve of his lips, like he knew something funny. And he did. See, Jake wasn't just some random guy with a patio shade. He wasn't new to this neighborhood. He'd lived here for years, 5 long years. He knew every house, every street, every person. He was the quiet guy who waved at kids and helped old ladies with their groceries. He didn't make a fuss, he just lived his life. But Karen, she was brand new. She'd only moved in a month ago into the big house next door with the red door and fancy flowers. She acted like she'd been there forever, though, like she owned the whole street. She'd walk around, telling people what to do: move your car, cut your grass, don't play music too loud. Everyone called her HOA Karen because she acted like she ran the homeowners association. But she didn't. The real HOA guy was nice and quiet. Karen was loud and bossy. And she didn't know Jake at all. She didn't know who he really was. While Karen kept yelling into her phone, Jake's smirk got a tiny bit bigger. He took a slow sip of his lemonade, the ice clinking softly. He wasn't scared of her. He wasn't mad. Why? Because Jake had friends, important friends, friends in high places. Karen didn't know that. She thought he was just some guy she could push around. But Jake had been around a long time. He knew people, people who could make things happen. And Karen, she was about to find out she wasn't as smart as she thought. Minutes went by. Karen finally hung up the phone and shoved it in her pocket. "They're coming," she said, turning to Jake with a big, mean grin. "The cops are on their way and you're in big trouble now." She crossed her arms and stared at him, waiting for him to get upset. She wanted him to jump up, yell, or beg her to stop. But Jake didn't do any of that. He just sat there, calm as could be, his chair creaking a little under him. "Okay," he said, his voice soft and easy. That made Karen's grin falter just for a second. She didn't like how chill he was. It made her nervous, even if she didn't show it. Then something happened. A sound started far away, soft at first, but getting louder. Woo woo, sirens, police sirens. They were coming closer, cutting through the quiet Saturday air. Karen's grin came back, bigger than ever. "Hear that?" she said, pointing toward the sound. "That's for you. They're going to make you take that ugly shade down." She laughed, a loud, sharp laugh, like she'd already won a big prize. She thought the cops were coming to help her. She thought Jake was done for. But Jake didn't flinch. He didn't even look worried. He set his lemonade down on the little table next to him and stretched his arms, like he was relaxing even more. The sirens got louder, woo woo, and Karen started bouncing on her feet, excited. She kept looking down the street, waiting for the police cars to show up. "You're going to be sorry," she said, her voice full of glee. "I told you not to mess with me." She thought she had it all figured out. She thought she was the big winner. Oh, how wrong she was. See, Karen didn't know something important, something really, really big. Jake wasn't just sitting there because he was lazy or scared. He was sitting there because he knew what was coming, and it wasn't what Karen expected. She'd been so busy yelling and bossing people around that she didn't see her own mess. Her own secrets, secrets she thought nobody knew about. But Jake, he'd heard things. Living in the neighborhood for years, you hear a lot. People talk, neighbors whisper, and Jake listened. Karen had only been there a month, but she'd already made enemies. People didn't like her. They didn't like how she acted, how she pretended to be in charge. And some of those people, they'd started digging. They'd found stuff out about her, stuff she didn't want anyone to know. Jake didn't say it out loud, but he knew. He'd heard the rumors. He'd seen the looks people gave her when she wasn't watching. And his friends, the ones in high places, they knew even more. The sirens were super loud now. You could hear tires rolling on the road, getting closer and closer. Karen clapped her hands together like a kid on Christmas morning. "Here they come," she cheered. "You're done, Jake, done." She turned to him, expecting him to look scared or mad. But Jake just picked up his lemonade again and took another sip. His tiny smirk was still there, like he was holding in a laugh. That made Karen pause. "Why are you smiling?" she snapped. "This isn't funny." Jake shrugged. "Maybe it is," he said, so quiet she almost didn't hear him. Karen's face twisted up, confused and angry. She didn't get it. She didn't understand why he wasn't freaking out, but she didn't have time to figure it out. The sirens were right around the corner now. Any second, the cops would pull up. Karen thought they were coming for Jake. She thought they'd march over, tell him he was wrong, and rip down his shade. She thought she'd won. But here's the thing, Jake wasn't the one in trouble. Karen's secrets, those sneaky little things she'd been hiding, were about to spill out. And Jake, he was ready to watch it happen. The sirens wailed one last time, and then red and blue lights flashed down the street. Karen grinned wider. She had no idea what was really coming. No idea at all. What do you think happens next? Hang on, this is about to get wild. The sirens stopped, and two police cars rolled into view. Their red and blue lights flashed bright, bouncing off the houses and trees. They parked right in front of Jake's little blue house, tires crunching on the gravel. Karen's eyes lit up like it was her birthday. She waved her arms big and wild, like she was trying to flag down a plane. Over here, she shouted, pointing at Jake's patio shade. It was still just sitting there, green and quiet, shading Jake's chair. Arrest him, she yelled, her voice loud and bossy. That thing's illegal. He's breaking the rules. Jake sat in his chair, sipping his lemonade. The ice clinked in his glass, but he didn't move. He didn't say a word. He just watched, that tiny smirk still on his face. Karen kept pointing at the shade, bouncing on her flip-flops. Get him, she demanded. He's the problem. That shade is awful. She thought the cops were there for Jake. She thought they'd listen to her, march over and tell him off. She thought she'd won the fight. But then something funny happened. The car doors opened and two officers stepped out. They were tall, wearing dark uniforms with shiny badges. One had a notepad in his hand and the other had a serious look on his face. Karen kept waving, but the cops didn't look at Jake, not even a little peek. Instead, they turned their heads and walked straight toward her. Their boots thumped on the ground, slow and steady. Karen didn't notice at first. She was too busy yelling. Hurry up, he's right there, she said, jabbing her finger at Jake. The first cop stopped right in front of her. He was big, with a deep voice. Karen Baxter, he asked, looking her right in the eyes. His tone wasn't soft or friendly, it was firm, like a teacher calling your name when you're in trouble. Karen froze, her hand dropped a little and her mouth opened, but no words came out at first. Yes, she finally said, her voice wobbly. She blinked fast, confused. Why were they talking to her? Weren't they here for Jake? The second cop stepped up. He held something shiny in his hand, handcuffs. They dangled there, catching the sunlight. You're under arrest, the first cop said, clear and loud, for fraud and harassment. Karen's jaw dropped so low it looked like it might hit the ground. What? She stammered, her eyes wide. Arrest me? No, you've got it wrong. It's him. She pointed at Jake again, her hand shaking now. He's the one with the illegal shade. But the cops didn't turn around. They didn't even glance at Jake or his shade. The second cop shook his head. Nope, he said. We're here for you, Ms. Baxter. He stepped closer, holding the handcuffs out. Karen took a step back, her flip-flops tripping over the grass. This is a mistake, she cried. I called you. I'm the good guy here. Her voice was getting higher, squeaky, like she was scared. Jake leaned back in his chair, sipping his lemonade again. The smirk on his face got a little bigger. See, here's the big surprise. Jake wasn't just some quiet neighbor. He wasn't just a guy who liked to sit in his yard. He had a secret, a good one. He was buddies with the local sheriff. Yep, the sheriff, the big boss of the police around here. They'd known each other for years. Jake fixed the sheriff's car once and they'd been friends ever since. They'd chat sometimes, have a coffee, talk about the neighborhood. Now, Jake didn't brag about it. He didn't tell people. He just kept it quiet, like he kept everything else. But Karen, she didn't know that. She didn't know anything about Jake. She thought he was nobody, just a guy she could boss around. But she was wrong. And here's the even bigger twist. Karen wasn't as clean as she acted. She'd been scamming people for months. Yep, scamming, tricking people, taking their money, lying about stuff. She moved into the neighborhood with her big house and fancy flowers, acting like she was perfect. But behind it all, she was sneaky. She's made fake HOA fines, telling people they owed her money for dumb rules she made up. She'd harassed neighbors, yelling at them until they gave in. People were sick of her and they'd started talking. Jake had heard the stories. He didn't say much, but he listened. He knew Karen was trouble, and his buddy, the sheriff, he knew even more. People had called the police about Karen before, quiet calls, complaints about her scams. The cops were already looking into her. They had papers, proof, all the stuff they needed to catch her. That 911 call she made, the one about Jake's shade, it didn't start this. It just made it happen faster. She'd handed herself right to them, like giving a present with a big bow on it. The first cop grabbed Karen's arm, gentle but strong. "Turn around, please," he said. Karen shook her head fast. "No, this is wrong. You're supposed to arrest him." She pointed at Jake one last time, her face all red and sweaty, but the cop didn't budge. He turned her around and clicked the handcuffs on her wrists. Snap, snap. "You've got the right to stay quiet," he started, saying the stuff cops say when they arrest someone. Karen wasn't quiet, though. "This is crazy," she shouted. "I didn't do anything. It's the shade, the shade." Jake set his glass down and stretched his arms. He looked at the cops and gave a little nod like